Amma ba'd. Now we're returning to our study on Asma wa Sifat after quite a few months. And the last time we went over the fundamentals of Tawheed was almost 2 years ago now. So today we'll go over a quick recap of everything that we've studied also, and we'll begin with the next name that we are going to be studying, which is Al-Malik, Al-Malik, and Al-Malik. But to begin, if we recall that there are roughly 10 fundamentals when it comes to Tawheed, when it comes to the oneness of Allah, and when it comes to the names and the attributes of Allah. And that is that all the knowledge regarding the names and the attributes of Allah, they are from two sources alone, the Quran and the Sunnah. Nobody can come and say that, oh, I know some knowledge of Allah, but it's not confirmed in the Quran or the Sunnah. Likewise, all of the names and the attributes of Allah, they imply the highest level of perfection. So every single quality that Allah has, it is upon the pinnacle of perfection. Allah's names and attributes, they have been with Him eternally. So they have always been with Him. His qualities have always been with Him, and it will always be with Him. So even before His creation, He was always Ar-Rahman, He was always Al-Malik, He was always Dhul Jalali wal Ikram, for example. Likewise also, every name of Allah, it implies an attribute. But Allah has many more attributes than He does names. So there are certain descriptions that we find in the Quran that not necessarily Allah has a name for it. So Allah has names. We know that only Allah knows how many names that He has. There are many names that He's kept hidden with Him in the unseen, that perhaps we may find out in the Akhirah. But for now, the number that has been revealed to us in the Quran and the Sunnah is roughly around 126 or so amongst that number. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever learns 99 of them, then Allah will admit them into Jannah. The ulama explained that there are 3 levels when it comes to learning and understanding the names of Allah. The first level, which is at the bottom, is to memorize the names. Many of us, we memorize the 99 names of Allah. That's good. That's good. But then the second level, which is also as important, is to try and understand what those names imply and how those names affect you in your daily life. And the highest level of learning and studying the names of Allah is making dua with those names. Allah said, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَدَعُوهُ بِهَا. That to Allah belongs the best names, the most beautiful names. To call upon Him, make dua with them. Look, this is a command. This is not a, if you wish, then make a dua. If you don't want to, then it's okay. No, Allah says, make sure you do. فَدَعُوهُ بِهَا. Call upon Allah with them. May Allah grant us all the ability to do so. And likewise also Allah's attributes and Allah's names, they are of 2 types. The first is to affirm a quality that He has affirmed for Himself. And the second is to negate for Himself that which creation or those who disbelieve have tried to associate with Him. And also, Allah is not like His creation. Allah says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. That there is nothing like Allah. Nothing can be compared to Allah. Allah does not look like His creation. He does not resemble His creation in any shape, manner or form. Another of the fundamentals is to not twist the apparent understanding of the names. So you find that certain sects in Islam, they start to reject certain names because it doesn't make sense to them. Take for example, when it comes to the hands of Allah. Allah, He says in Surah Dhariyat, وَالسَّمَاء بَنَيْنَاهَا بِأَيْدٍ. That Allah, He created the heavens or the skies with His hands. But then they say, okay, hold on a second, Allah cannot look like us, so that means He doesn't have hands. You see, they made the first mistake there. They rejected something that Allah affirmed for Himself, that He does have hands. It doesn't mean that it looks like ours. It doesn't mean that He looks like a human. Nobody knows what it looks like. But if Allah said He had it, then He has it. We affirm it just like how Allah affirms it. And this is of the methodology of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That whatever Allah affirmed for Himself, we affirm it without questioning how. We do not try to say, oh, how does His hands look? How does Allah's eyes look? What is it, what does it look like? We don't try to do that. And again, we follow the methodology of the early generations, the Salafus Salihin. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. And so of the names that we've covered so far is the names that we'll find most commonly in the Quran, being the name of Allah Himself, which is His chosen name. And the ulama said that this is perhaps the greatest name of Allah, because it encompasses all other names. Likewise, the name Ar-Rabb is something we'll find many a time. Whenever Allah He mentions us making dua to Him in the Quran, He always uses Rabbana, meaning Ar-Rabb. We always use this name of Allah. It is the most common names you'll find in the Quran. And likewise, we also went over the 3 ahadith. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, regarding the greatest name of Allah. And the greatest name of Allah, only Allah knows which one it is. But if you make dua to Allah with His greatest name, He will respond to your dua. When called upon, He will respond to you. Allahu Akbar. May Allah grant us all a good understanding. The first hadith that we went over is when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he heard a man making dua. And this man said, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi'annaka anta Allah, la ilaha illa ant, al-ahad, al-samad, alladhi lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad, an taghfira li dhunubi. He said, innaka anta al-ghafur rahim. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he responded saying 3 times, qad ghufira la, qad ghufira la, qad ghufira la. What this means, Allahumma inni as'aluka. Oh Allah, I ask you, bi'annaka anta Allah, by virtue of you being Allah. La ilaha illa ant, that there is none worthy of worship except you. Al-Ahad, Al-Samad, 2 names of Allah which we went over. The one and only, the one who is alone, He is one in His essence and actions. Al-Samad, the perfection, and there were so many names or so many meanings that branches from this name. Of them is the self-sufficient, or the self-sufficient master, or the one who satisfies all the needs of His creation, or the independent master that all of creation relies upon for all of their needs and their desires and their wants. The one who is flawless and perfect in His essence and His actions. All of that is As-Samad, the perfection. Allahu Akbar. Alladhi lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. The one who did not beget nor begets, and the one to whom there is none in comparison. And then he said, An taghfira li dhunubi, that you forgive me for my sins. Innaka antal ghafur rahim. Indeed, you are the one who forgives over and over, the entirely merciful. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily he has been forgiven 3 times. And that's a very easy way for us also to be forgiven by Allah. You find yourself committing a sin, raise your hands and say this, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi'annaka anta Allah, la ilaha illa anta al-ahad as-samad, alladhi lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad, an taghfira li dhunubi, innaka anta al-ghafurur rahim. And like that, also you and I would be forgiven. May Allah grant us all His maghfirah. The second name that we went over, and this is from another hadith, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that the greatest name of Allah is in one of these 2 ayat. One of them is from Surah Ali Imran, where Allah says, Alif Lam Mim, Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum. So it could be al-hayyul qayyum. And the ulama said al-hayyul qayyum is perhaps the greatest candidate from all of these names you find in the ahadith that could be the greatest name of Allah. Because al-hayyul qayyum is a name that, again, it encompasses all other things. If you look at al-hayy, it indicates the perfection of Allah's that, Allah's essence. In Himself, He is perfect. His sight is perfect. His hearing is perfect. His knowledge is perfect. His wisdom is perfect. His power is perfect. And Al-Qayyum, the sustainer of all things, the one who sustains you and I. And He does not need to be sustained by any other. He sustains Himself. So every single action or name of Allah that implies an action, then that all falls under Al-Qayyum. For example, the one who bestows Rahmah, Ar-Rahim, that's also implied in Al-Qayyum. The one who gives to his slaves, Al-Kareem or Al-Wahhab or Al-Mu'ti, the one who is generous with his slaves, that is also implied in Al-Qayyum. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. And the second ayah is وَإِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّهُ الرَّحْمَنُ الرَّحِيمُ. So these are other 2 names that could be the greatest names of Allah, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. And likewise in the third hadith that we went over, is when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam heard a man making dua. And this person, he said, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi'anna lakal hamd, la ilaha illa anta wahdaka la sharika lak. That, oh Allah, I ask you because all praise belongs to you. There is none worthy of worship except you, alone without any partners. Al-Mannan, Badi'u as-samawati wal-ard, Ya dhal jalali wal-ikram, Ya hayyu ya qayyum. Al-Mannan, your benefactor. All source of favors of manna, it comes from Al-Mannan himself. Every single favor that you have in your life. Badi'u as-samawati wal-ard, the originator of the heavens and the earth. Dhul jalali wal-ikram. And again, many of the ulama, they said, this is the greatest name of Allah. Because of certain other ahadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Alidhu biyadhul jalali wal ikram. Be persistent and constant in calling upon Allah with yadhul jalali wal ikram. And again, it's such a huge study. We spent around 3 months studying this name. Now, subhanallah, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. And Al-Hayyul Qayyum. So any of these names, it could be one of the greatest names of Allah. And so we should be using these names in our dua at all times as much as we can. Not a single day should go by except that we call upon Allah using these names, and we also try to do tadabbur and to do tafakkur, to ponder over these names of Allah, to renew our iman. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. So from today, inshaAllah, we'll begin with the names Al-Malik, Al-Malik and Al-Malik. And subhanallah, before we even begin on that, is how many Muslims, they live their lives. They live their entire lives, never ever truly knowing Allah on an intimate basis. The maximum they know about Allah is that He has no father, He has no son, He's the Lord, He's the Creator, that's it. I'm going to return to Him, that's it. They don't know how He treats them. They don't know anything else of Allah. What a miserable life they live. And so with us sitting over here, learning about the names of Allah, learning about how Allah treats us, it is of the greatest of affairs. The knowledge of Allah, it is of the greatest branches of knowledge. The ulama said, if you have to look at knowledge in itself, there's all different branches. Take for example, worldly knowledge. You'll have your basic knowledge, you'll have different branches of knowledge, you have different levels. For example, you have your undergraduate, you have your PhD and your masters, etc., etc. Even when it comes to deen, when it comes to Islam, there are different branches of knowledge. You have fiqh, you have tafsir, you have all different manners. And the knowledge, or the branch of knowledge that is referring to the names of Allah, is the most excellent of all knowledge. The superiority of ma'arifah, knowledge or knowing who Allah is, over all other branches of knowledge, is like the superiority of Allah over His creation. So learning about Allah, it is the most important and of the greatest affairs that you and I could do. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. And so we realize the favor of Allah as we sit over here learning about Him, yearning to get close to Him, learning or yearning to be intimate with Him through all of His names. And indeed, again, if you want to know where's the proof that knowing or learning about the names of Allah is important for the believer. It's one of the most neglected of all things. People, they come to the madrasa, we have Muslims, they grow up, they never ever truly learn about the inner meanings of the names of Allah. But if you go to Surah Fatiha, look into the Quran, the very first thing, the most important of all things, is to praise Allah. If you look at after the Basmala, the very first ayah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, signifying that your most important activity is to praise Allah and to be grateful to Allah. Again, there are two types of praise. You have the lower form of praise. It's important, but it's the lower form, which is to praise Allah for the blessings that He gives you. To praise Allah and to thank Allah for everything that He gives you and He does for you. This is of the lower forms of praise. The higher form of praise is to praise Allah for who He is. And this is at the pinnacle of submission and ubudiyyah, which is to be a true slave, is that you praise Allah for who He is. That He is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. And that's the very next ayah in Surah Fatiha, again signifying that one of the most important affairs for you, more important than you knowing about the akhirah, is knowing about your Rabb first and foremost. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. And so the names of Allah, Al-Malik, Al-Malik and Al-Malik, they are all derived from the word mulk, milk or malk. Al-Malik means the king. Al-Malik is the owner or the master. And Al-Malik is the sovereign or the sovereign Lord. Again, the root is Mim, Lam, Kaf. And this is a name of Allah that really, it should truly help us humble ourselves before Him and submit ourselves to Him completely. A name that completely changes our perspective of Allah. A name that should completely change the way we perceive Allah with our hearts. The ulama said that mulk, it means to restrain. The example given is when you put reins over a horse and then you hold those reins. Then you are in complete control of that horse. You direct it wherever you want it to go. It cannot do anything unless you allow it to do it. That is a Malik. A Malik is the one who's holding those reins. Allah is Al-Malik. He has complete control. He's holding the reins of entirety of creation. Nasiyati biyadik. Part of a dua that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us is that our foreheads, our very foreheads, is in the grasp of Allah. Every single thing that you can do and you cannot do, Allah controls it. أَمَّن يَمْلِكُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارِ. Allah says in Surah Yunus, who controls your hearing and your sight? Allah. سَيَقُولُونَ Allah. Allah controls what you can see, what you can hear, what you can't see, what you can't hear. Of the knowledge that enters your heart, Allah controls it. Of that which you may be able to perceive of the truth, Allah controls it. You find a person, he's not believing in the truth even though he sees creation, the ayat of Allah, even though you try to explain it to him. Why doesn't he believe? Because Al-Malik has not permitted it yet. Because Al-Malik controls the sight. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah says, Allah comes between a man and his heart. Guidance and Islam hasn't entered a person's heart. Maybe you have family members who are still far away from Islam or far away from practicing, still disobeying Allah. Why? Because Allah has not permitted it yet. Because Allah comes between a man and his heart. Allah is Muqallib al-Qulub, the turner of hearts. Allahu Akbar. May Allah grant us all a good understanding. And so Al-Malik, the king, this is mentioned 5 times in the Quran. In Surah Taha, where Allah He says, فَتَعَالَى اللَّهُ الْمَلِكُ الْحَقَّ. That lofty, sublime is Allah, the true king. Likewise also in Surah Mu'minun, فَتَعَالَى اللَّهُ الْمَلِكُ الْحَقِّ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ رَبُّ الْعَرْشِ الْكَرِيمِ. That lofty is Allah, the true king. We also find in Surah Nas where Allah says, Malikin Nas, the king or the owner of mankind. In this case, the king of mankind. You'll also find in Surah Hashr, and subhanAllah, what a powerful ayah which we hear all the time. And after we study these names of Allah, it should completely change the way when we're standing in salah and we're hearing the Imam say, Huwa Allahu la ilaha illahu Al-Malikul Quddusul Salamul Mu'minul Muhaymin المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. That who Allah, He is Allah. And when you find in the Quran Allah saying who Allah, you have to check your heart. Can your heart feel it? He is Allah, la ilaha illahu. There is none worthy of worship except Him. Al-Malik, the king. And subhanallah, again, we'll find out even shortly, we'll go into the inner meanings of this name so that it completely changes our understanding of it. We also find Malik. Now Malik or Al-Malik means master or owner. And the ulama said that Al-Malik and Al-Malik, there's slight differences. Because you may be a king, which also makes you an owner. But you may be an owner of something that doesn't make you a king of something. Take for example, you have your phones. You own your phones. That doesn't make you the king of your phone. A king is a person whose command is always enforced upon his kingdom. There may be times when your phone, it doesn't do what you want it to do. Because us in our ownership is secondary. Allah is the primary owner of all things. So Al-Malik, this name of Allah is mentioned twice. The first is in Surah Fatiha, Maliki Yawmiddin, the master or the owner of Yawmul Qiyamah, or the day of recompense. And in Surah Ali Imran, قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ تُؤْتِ الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَّنْ تَشَاءُ. That say, and this is a powerful dua, O Allah, the master or the owner of kingdom, you give to whomsoever you want. You give kingdom to whomsoever you want, and you snatch it away. You take it away from whomsoever you want. Look at the dua of Sulaymaan alayhi salam when he said, رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. He said, Oh Allah, forgive me, my Lord, forgive me, and grant me such a kingdom that none after me would ever have. Allah, He responded to that, and He gave him control of the wind, control of the jinns. He was able to speak to animals. He had an army full of them. Allahu Akbar. Because inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir. And that's another lesson we can learn from this, going on a side note, is that Allah, He says, ضَعُفَ الطَّالِبُ وَالْمَطْلُوبُ مَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَقَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ. That when it comes to those who worship idols, Allah, He says to them, ضَعُفَ الطَّالِبُ وَالْمَطْلُوبُ. That the one who's seeking from these idols, they are weak. ضَعُف, ضَعِيفًا. They are weak. Because what are they expecting sticks and stones to do for them? And the one that's searched for also is powerless. مَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. Rather, you have not recognized Allah the way He deserves to be recognized. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَقَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ. Indeed, Allah is Al-Qawi, the one who is all strong, Al-Aziz, almighty. Indicating that when you make dua to Allah, you should have so much of yaqeen that Allah will definitely respond to you. That there is no doubt in there. Will Allah respond? Will Allah give me? No. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَقَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ. Allah wants you to make dua with such yaqeen that you know for a fact that Allah will definitely respond to you. May Allah grant us all a good understanding. As for the name Al-Malik, this is only mentioned once in the Quran, and that is at the end of Surah Qamar, where Allah, He mentions that the believers or those who had taqwa when they are in Jannah, fi maq'adi sidqin 'inda malikin muqtadir, that they will be upon seats of honor in the presence of the Almighty or the all-powerful sovereign Lord. And so to own something exclusively and to not allow others to use it is the basic meaning of mulk. Like we mentioned, every king is an owner, but not every owner is a king. And by the way, both definitions cannot be applied to Allah. Because Allah is the Malik and He is also the Malik. He is the owner and He is the king and He is the sovereign. And His command is always enforced upon His creation. Allah is in complete control at all times. Something negative happens, it's because Allah has allowed it to happen. If Allah did not allow it to happen, it would not have happened. Be it the bombs dropping, be it the negative happening, be it those who are evil having power and authority upon the land, it's because Al-Malik has allowed it as a test for the believers. So those who are sincere with Allah and they are righteous, they will have sabr and they will continue worshipping Allah, and so they will attain Jannah. But for those who are evil, they will be increased in sin. And this is what Allah, He says, سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Again, many of us, we don't understand at times. Why does Allah allow evil to happen? Why does Allah allow people to murder? Why does Allah allow people to do zina? Why does Allah allow all these sins to happen when He does not like these sins? That's why He made it haram. It's because for those who are destined to Jahannam, or destined to go to Jahannam, Allah allows them to do this, to continue being increased in punishment or in sins, so that when they go to Him, they will receive the ultimate punishment. So we have to check our own actions. We have to ensure that we are doing right by Allah. And so if we look into the roots, and that is the word milk, mulk and mulk. It comes from malaka. Now malaka, it means to take in possession, or to take over something, or to acquire something, or to seize something, or to lay your hands on something, or to lay hold of something or someone, or to take full possession, full authority and full control over something or someone. So Allah is Al-Malik, the possessor of all of dominion. وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكِ. In His hands lies all of dominion. He has control over each and every single thing. Allah Al-Malik, the mighty King, who has every single creature within His grasp, His control, and He is able to seize them at any time. His hands are tightly over His dominion, never letting go for even a split second, because He's the King. As Allah, He says, قُلْ مَنْ بِيَدِهِ مَلَكُوتُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وهو يجير ولا يجار عليه إن كنتم تعلمون سيقولون لله قل فأنا تسحرون. That قُلْ مَنْ بِيَدِهِ مَلَكُوتُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, in whose hands lies the dominion of all things. وَهُوَ يُجِيرُ, and He's the one who protects you. وَلَا يُجَارُ عَلَيْهِ, and none can protect you from Him. Again, وَهُوَ يُجِيرُ وَلَا يُجَارُ عَلَيْهِ, He is the one who protects you from all things, and none can protect you from Him. In kuntum ta'alamun, if you know. They will say Allah, and then Allah, He responds saying, قُلْ فَأَنَّا تُسْحَرُونَ, then how are you deluded? How can you go and place your trust upon something other than Allah when He is in complete control? How can you submit yourself to other than Allah when He's in complete control? How can you think that Allah will not help you and support you in your life? How could you be so deluded that Allah will not help you and support you in your life when He's the one who's in complete control? Allahu Akbar. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. Of the next meanings is to own something, or to have something, to be the owner of something, or to dominate something. To have complete dominance and control, and to be the master of something or someone, or to reign and to exercise power of authority to govern things. As we know, Allah, He is Al-Malik, meaning that He is the one who owns all things. He exercises His authority over all things, and He governs all of creation. And He is the one who's dominant, and His command is dominant over all creation at all times. Again, Allah, He says in Surah An-Na'am that وَهُوَ الْقَاهِرُ فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ, that He reigns supreme over His slaves. All of His slaves are subjected to His will. وَيُرْسِلُ عَلَيْكُمْ حَفَظًا, and He sends to you angels to protect you from that which He has not decreed for you. حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتِ, up until death comes to you. Your lungs are controlled by Al-Malik. Your breathing is controlled by Al-Malik. The only reason you are still breathing now is because the King Himself is allowing you to do so. The moment He gives the word, no more oxygen for you, no more breathing for you, death will come for you. تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا وَهُمْ لَا يُفَرِّطُونَ, and His messengers, the angels of death, will take your soul, and they never ever fail in their duties. ثُمَّ رُدُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ مَوْلَاهُمُ الْحَقِّ, and then we will all return to Allah, our true Master. أَلَا لَهُ الْحُكْمُ, and to Him belongs the command and the decree. وَهُوَ أَسْرَعُ الْحَاسِبِينَ, so powerful, Allahu Akbar. وَهُوَ أَسْرَعُ الْحَاسِبِينَ, He is the swiftest of those who take reckoning. That Allah is sufficient. وَكَفَى بِنَا حَاسِبِينَ, we are sufficient to take reckoning or to take accountability of mankind for all of their actions. Again, may Allah grant us all Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah protect us all from the terrors of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and may Allah protect us all from Jahannam. Now, subhanallah, now it gets even deeper, and that is Malaka. And how long? It's been 30 minutes. Give it another 10 minutes or so, we have a few more topics, and then we'll continue next week, inshallah. So Malaka, to be capable, to have mastery, to be able or to be in a position or to be able to control yourself. Now this comes to the dhatiyya of Allah, the essence of Allah. That Allah is in complete control at all times. That, for example, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's mentioned that Allah will be in a state of anger like never before, nor will He be after that. That is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Yet even when Allah is in that state of anger and state of fury on that day, it's not like He will allow that fury or that anger to control Him. Because again, Allah is He's always in control. Nothing ever controls Allah. No emotion, no feeling like human beings, or anything as such could ever control Allah. So even on that day, when he is as angry as he's ever been. When it comes to the believers, and subhanAllah, it's mentioned that when Allah comes, He will look to the believers terrified, afraid of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and He will laugh towards them, just to ease their tensions. He's angry, yet at the same time He's comforting the believers when He's giving them the good news of Jannah. So even though Allah will be in a state of anger, that anger does not control Him. Allah is the one who's always in control. And that is what the Arabs, they use this term, Malakuhul Ghayth, that when your anger overcomes you, then your anger, it becomes your king. It basically is your master because you're controlled by your anger. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. Another term that the Arabs use, and subhanAllah, it's so amazing, is that Malaka alayhi jami'a masha'iri, that something or someone becomes so dominant in your mind that every thought of yours and every action of yours, it becomes for them. That the one who's the most dominant in your mind, the Malak or the Malik of yourself, of your own heart or mind, is the one who's always uppermost in your mind. That which you're thinking about the most is the true master of you. And that's a powerful statement. Because what is it that you think about the most? What is it that you love to do the most? That is your true master. Likewise, the Arabs, they say, Malaka alayhi lubba. Subhanallah, that your true Malik is the one who affects your innermost feelings, or rather the lub of your heart. The Arabs, they refer to the lub as your heartbeat. Lub, lub, lub. That is where they got the name from. Allah, He uses ulul albab, for example, those whose innermost section of the heart. This is where your true love resides. That which you truly love, that's your Malik. Allah is Al-Malik. And to the believer, He is the true king of their hearts. That every single action is for Him. That He is always on their mind. Malaka alayhi hissa is another term that Arabs use, that the one who is most dominant in your life, the one who causes you to become excited, the one who arouses your feelings even, feelings of awe, feelings of fear, feelings of love, that is your Malik. For people it could be anything, for the believer it's Allah. Malaka alayhi hissa, even the feelings, your feelings, that which is most dominant in your life affects your feelings. Allah Al-Malik is the one who makes the believers happy. When you think about Allah, you can't help but become happy. You think about the might of Allah, you can't help but feel afraid. Because that's Al-Malik, the true king. And so the question we have to ask ourselves, who's your true king? What's the most dominant in your life? May Allah grant us all a good understanding. And that's the other meaning of Malk or Malaka, is to dominate someone's thinking or to affect them so deeply, to stir up, to arouse and to excite in something or someone, all manner of feelings. And so, subhanAllah, if you're looking at it in this day and age, many of the people, they run to alcohol, they run to drugs, they want to watch movies and all these things all day long because it releases dopamine in their mind. For the believer, his daily fix, so to say, of that which stimulates him is salah. When he's pondering over the ayat of Allah and he's remembering who his king is, the true king of his heart, that when you truly understand and adopt into your heart that Allah is my king, Ya Rabb, you are my king, you are the owner of my heart. And then when you make dua in that sense, then you feel a level of intimacy that you've never felt before. That everything again becomes for Allah. So even the name Al-Malik, it denotes ikhlas, that everything you do is for Allah Himself. And we'll keep it over there for today. We'll continue next week, just to again, a quick summary of the names of Al-Malik, Al-Malik and Al-Malik, His ownership and kingship of dominion, to rule and to govern over all things. Where Allah, He gives you your free will. And He expects you with your free will to recognize who He is so that He becomes the true king. فَتَعَالَ اللَّهُ الْمَلِكُ الْحَقِّ. This takes a totally different meaning when you realize with your own free will that He is your king, your true king, the true king of your heart. the one who dominates the heart, the spirit, the mind, and the souls and the feelings of all people, or rather of the believers in itself. And we'll keep it over there for today. We'll continue next week. We'll go into what the ulama have explained regarding this name. And then after that also we'll go over what the Quran and the tafsir is of this name before we move on to the next names. Again, may Allah grant us all a good understanding. May Allah grant us all the ability to always live closely by His names, to be able to feel close to Him at all times, and to make dua to Him at all times with His names. اللهم اجعل خير أعمالنا آخرة وخير أعمالنا خواتمة واجعل خير أيامنا يوم نلقاك. اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا وأكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآرثنا ولا تؤثر علينا وارضنا وارض عنا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد. أقول قولي هذا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.